Welcome back. Today we're opening up a really remarkable piece of organizational history. It's basically an explicit blueprint for how a large-scale international movement tried to embed itself into, well, every facet of life.
It's an amazing document.
We're diving into the guidelines for Unification church activities. This is from the 1979 State Leaders Conference, dictated by Reverend Sun Myung Moon himself.
And, what you've shared here is so much more than just an internal memo. This is a highly detailed, comprehensive strategic plan. It's organized into 7 key areas, everything from home church operations to education, politics, economics, and media.
Yeah, the scope is just extraordinary. Our mission today is to really explore that scope from the detailed requirements for an individual member salvation all the way up to.
To explicit international intelligence gathering tactics.
Wow.
It's a single unified vision that commands this intense micromanagement alongside a huge macro ambition.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start at the foundation, right? The hyperlocal home church.
That's
And this section is immediately striking because even the requirements for personal salvation are given these quantifiable organizational metrics.
precisely. Spiritual success is tied directly to these clear, almost corporate goals.
Mhm.
The guidelines frame salvation around succeeding in 3 judgments of words, character, and heart. But then there's the immediate practical mandate.
Yeah, chiz.
Members have to ensure others attend a whole sequence of training workshops. It starts with a 3-day intro session and goes all the way up to these really rigorous 70-day programs.
And of course, the most famous metric is the requirement to gain 84 disciples.
Right, the 84.
It's a very deliberate number reflecting biblical figures, the 12 disciples and 72 elders combined. It's literally a numerical quota attached to your eternal life. It just defines spiritual effort in terms of, recruitment and education goals.
And that data-driven approach immediately extends into how they plan to penetrate the community.
Yeah.
They used existing social hierarchies. The guidelines have these incredibly detailed instructions on utilizing, and that's their word, utilizing noted, well-known, or famous people within the home church area.
And it's not just about, having them show up. The instructions are to involve these people heavily in activities, ask them to be the master of ceremonies or co-sponsors for events. What's the strategic payoff there?
No, it's a very sophisticated form of leverage. The goal is twofold. First, you leverage their social influence to attract other people and lend credibility. But second, and this is maybe more important, the document says if they are publicly listed as co-sponsors, it becomes much, much harder for them to separate from the organization later.
They're sort of locked into the orbit.
They're locked in. It's an insulation against criticism. If you're a co-sponsor, you can't really refuse to listen to the core theological lecture, the divine principle, because that would be unprofessional.
And if they're receptive, the instruction is to push them immediately to become lecturers themselves, fast-tracking these high-influence individuals into positions of teaching authority.
It just accelerates growth by delegating authority to people who already have high public trust.
It's a very calculated strategy to turn social capital into organizational influence.
What's also fascinating, especially for a spiritual movement, is the a very specific targeting of older people, grandparents specifically. Why focus on them?
The guidelines are just extremely pragmatic about this. Older people are described as, and I'm quoting here, the loneliest and a better media to disseminate divine principle.
Wow.
It's a strategy built on identifying emotional vulnerability and then maximizing the network effect. You impress the grandparents so thoroughly that they become the emotional foundation for lecturing the entire extended family, sons, daughters, grandchildren, at birthday parties and holidays.
And members are told to actually facilitate these family gatherings, even helping out financially if they have to make sure the family comes together. If the kids live far away, the member is supposed to help the grandparent write letters about how impressed they were by the teachings.
It's infiltration through altruism. You generate trust by fulfilling an emotional need. And it doesn't stop there. The document details how to create the heaven of home church by sponsoring meetings between completely different groups, labor and the upper class, police and judges, professors and students. The organization provides the structure.
And thereby directs the conclusion.
Exactly.
Some of the practical examples for building this community are, they're bizarrely charming. Running knitting contests, or the most famous one, running a volunteer garbage collection service.
The candy bar strategy. It's famous for a reason. Members ring a bell to collect garbage and give the kids who help a candy bar. After a few Saturdays, the kids are just waiting for them.
And here's the key moment.
Right. The member stops ringing the bell and instead tells the children a moral story about respecting your parents or being kind.
And the instructions specify that the child, moved by the story, goes and tells their parents. You completely bypass the adult skepticism by moving them indirectly through their own child's enthusiasm, all without ever mentioning theology or the organization's name.
It's a highly calculated, indirect social engineering tactic. It's all about gaining goodwill long before any formal teaching is introduced.
And speaking of groundwork, the educational system is just as ambitious. Section 6 outlines the goal of a whole K-12 and college system.
They start exceptionally young. The plan includes nursery schools, often teaching Korean, where mothers are encouraged to leave children as young as 100 days old. The staff essentially tells the mother, we'll take better care of your child than you can, freeing her up for the organizational mission.
The restoration path. It really prioritizes the collective over the domestic.
And for higher ed, any member who hasn't finished their college degree is urged to do it immediately.
Why the urgency there?
To qualify for seminary enrollment. The whole document stresses the importance of formal education within the system. It's all about preparing members to be influential figures, which moves us right into the push for academic and clergy penetration.
Right. The next major vehicle, CRP, the Collegiate Association for the Research of Principle. So how were they told to build a campus base back in '79?
It needed two key things. A professor, usually someone who'd already been to one of their science conferences, and at least one core student. And that student had to go through that intense 70-day training theological immersion plus hardline anti-communist education to be armed with the right worldview.
And their role on campus wasn't just debate. CRP members were told to intervene in campus disputes, to bridge the gap between professors and students. I mean, even doing things like cleaning up graffiti to restore respect, which the source says was too unprofessional in America.
And to really cement that influence, the plan outlined some pretty high-level incentives. They would award the best professors and students, including this audacious idea of awarding the best professor $50,000 via a lottery. Just think about the impact of that.
That kind of money is designed for maximum publicity. It forces the academic community to engage with you on your terms. It's a way to shift the conversation using financial gravity.
This is a perfect pivot point because that strategy immediately expands to what they call superdenominational activities, aiming for unity with theologians and clergymen.
So for theologians, they leveraged the 200-plus professors who had already visited their seminary in Barrytown. But how do you turn a visit into an inseparable tie?
By giving them an audience. The strategy is to create permanent groups, like a Society for Comparative Religious Studies, and then provide the theologians with students to lecture to. Theologians need an audience. By supplying one, the organization creates these inseparable ties and puts itself in a higher position, providentially speaking, because they now control the intellectual infrastructure.
What's really revealing, though, is how they're told to deal with clergy who oppose them. They're told never to oppose them directly, but to use these extreme, unconventional measures.
This is where you see the really jarring juxtaposition of tactics. On one hand, you have the candy bar strategy for kids, and on the other, you have this aggressive psychological maneuvering for clergymen. The instructions actually include bringing a clergyman a bottle of whiskey while walking backward.
Walking backward? I mean, what is the rationale for something that bizarre?
The member is supposed to explain they walked backward because they thought the clergyman might not want to see them. The source calls this humor or an emergency measure. The goal is to totally disarm him through this mix of audacity, self-deprecation, and a peace offering. It's a memorable, destabilizing moment.
But it escalates. If the opposition continues, the member is authorized to use, well, outright aggressive confrontation, saying something like, I can knock you flat, you shouldn't oppose me so much.
It's a massive leap from humility to aggression. The organization justifies it because their mission is righteous and, bigger than any one person. They're also told to give clergy small gifts, maybe $100 or $200, for their own people. It's a mix of financial incentive and psychological force.
And this superdenominational unity had an explicit political goal.
A very explicit one.
While the religious groups themselves can't get into politics, the document says the unified super-denominational group can determine which denomination a senator will come from. It frames this as perfectly right to do so.
And that reveals the endgame. Religious unity is the means to achieve political influence. The religious group provides the spiritual mandate, and this unified supergroup provides the political leverage.
So this is the pivot point. We're moving from local community stuff and religious unity into this full-scale economic and media mobilization. Part 3 really outlines the foundation of tangible power.
Economically, the rules are strict. Members have to set up an independent cooperative economy joint ownership companies, restaurants, and observe strict tithing. And crucially, they're commanded to cherish common property more than their own personal property.
But that collective economy is tied directly back to the individual. State leaders are required to actively visit and pray for and coordinate sales for big business ventures. Ginseng tea, shipbuilding, titanium pigment. They're told to treat these businesses as their future family support.
That's the core tension right there. Sacrificial collective effort is paired with the guarantee of future individual economic independence. The guidelines also champion the jewelry business.
Why jewelry?
Small area requirement, large income, high mobility, and they even note its historical significance, saying the jewelry trade helped the preservation of the Jewish people during exile because the tools were mobile and the income was high. It suggests they were planning for security in potentially hostile environments.
And this whole economic structure was meant to be unified under one massive trading company. The plan was to use the vacant Tiffany building in New York for showrooms and offices. I mean, it was a vision of global economic self-sufficiency.
And that economic foundation directly supported what the document calls media warfare, run by the OWC, the Office of World Concern.
Right. And the key principle for reversing public opinion.
Never be apologetic or ashamed. Use positive propaganda, feed the right information over and over. Insist on the justice of your cause.
The immediate goal was a national newspaper with 50 state editions, all centrally produced in New York with modern tech. State leaders were basically conscripted as reporters, required to write at least 2 articles a month. They were even issued reporter ID cards.
But the confrontation strategy is where the aggression really peaks. If editors report unjustly, the strategy escalates fast. If an editor refuses to change their posture, members are told to threaten physical confrontation, to show that with our fists if necessary.
Physical confrontation. That's a huge leap from knitting contests. How on earth do they rationalize that level of aggression against the press?
It's justified by this belief in the absolute righteousness of their mission. The document says this audacity is necessary to save the millions of lives that would be endangered and lost due to a bad public impression from unfair media. The salvation of millions just overrides the need for civility.
It's a cost-benefit analysis where the stakes are eternal.
Exactly. And if the editor still ignores them, the instructions are to write the editor's name, address, and phone number on hundreds of placards and display them everywhere, challenging them to an open discussion on TV. It's public shaming to force compliance.
And underpinning all of this media warfare is an intelligence gathering unit.
A dedicated one. The document mandates a research bureau, an investigative reporting unit named Free Press International FPI.
A name obviously chosen for its sonic similarity to the FBI.
And its function is pure intelligence gathering, investigating police associated with the mafia or communists. It's an internal detective agency. Reporters, using their press cover, could even be sent behind the Iron Curtain for intelligence. It shows this profound concern for security and a willingness to operate way outside conventional spheres.
So when you put it all together, what does this mean? The 1979 guidelines reveal an organization that demanded total commitment, deploying this extraordinary detail across every level of society, from the local garbage route
right up to global intelligence. And the core insight, I think, is that structural tension. You have the simultaneous deployment of radical opposites. You have members doing this heartfelt, disarming community service, the altruistic home church. And at the same time, you have this highly assertive, even potentially illegal confrontation with media execs and the creation of an internal intelligence agency.
It's a cohesive vision that integrates spiritual fervor with this hyper-detailed political, economic, and security strategy.
And the economic model captures it perfectly. They demand absolute dedication to collective property strict tithing, frugality, but then they guarantee that participating in these businesses, like ginseng tea, is the key to securing the members' own future financial security.
So for you, the listener, the document presents this powerful paradox. What's the long-term sustainability of a structure that tries to combine extreme local altruism and sacrifice with these aggressive global corporate and political aims? And how does an individual navigate a system where personal salvation is quantified by recruitment metrics and collective gain is perpetually promised as the future source of your own individual economic safety? That is the blueprint of total ambition we've unpacked today.